Well, hello, everybody, and it's time now for episode 268 of the 3 Point Podcast presented by Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center and Skymint Cannabis. Of course, Memorial's Wellness Center is outstanding. It actually was voted the best health club and gym in our area by Argus Press readers. Also, the Big Salad was named the best salad bar. So congrats to Memorial. You know, anybody that listens to our podcast knows we talk about all the great things they have there, including the locker rooms, private showers, steam rooms, everything else, any kind of gym stuff you want to check out. But also, speaking of checking out, check out the Father's Day special. As they say, are you ready to transform from a dad bod to a rad bod? I guess I have to go from granddad bod
to dad bod, then to rad bod.
Yeah. Well, join the Wellness Center now and pay nothing until Father's Day. That's June 18th. So nice little pitch there for the Wellness Center, huh?
Yeah, and I saw they have like I could look it up real quick, but they have a summer challenge that you can join.
Yeah.
You know, you can join up with some friends or something to, you know, those things are sometimes they're good to like be involved with a couple friends to keep each other accountable. You know, you can shoot them a text, hey, did you do your challenge today? Or, you know, whatever it is. So some cool little things for sure.
Yeah, and they float something at the end too. You know, there's cash involved, so it's always good motivation. You know how I gear up for that, but it only costs me my money.
Yeah, exactly. You dangle not a carrot, you dangle cash at
cash,
the end,
baby.
And Ted's
cash.
going for it.
Oh, you're gonna say something, Jared?
I was just gonna say, to be honest, it's good to know that that's how your brain is wired. I feel like we need to figure out other ways to kind of put that into motion. I don't know if it's like we dangle money in front of you as you're on the treadmill or something, but the fact that, I mean, for the listeners who maybe are late to the story, basically you joined a weight challenge last year with money prize at the end. You dropped like 40 pounds like it was nothing. The second the challenge ended, you just went back to your ways and were right back to where you were a year ago. So it was awesome to see how your brain became so solely focused on that one end goal.
Right.
And it was the money. And then as soon as the money disappeared, you didn't care how much better you felt. You didn't care, how great you felt, how much energy you had. You just said, screw it. If there's no money involved, I don't care.
That's how it works, my friend. That's how it works. And by the way, just to be fair, I haven't put it all back on, just so we're clear on that. But, maybe I'll join the Memorial Challenge. We'll see.
Yep.
Also want to thank the folks at Skymint Cannabis, farm to stash, grown right here in the Great Lakes state. Over 20 locations just opened up their store in Traverse City. Check out Michigan's best bundles for deals on flower, pre-rolls, edibles, extracts, ounces as low as $49. It's summer season. Check out Skymint Cannabis. Also, check out our friends at AZEE Printing Solutions. See our auctions. Troy Crow, the owner, voted the best auctioneer in our area. So congrats to Troy. Nelson House Funeral Homes, rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. We're going to have a little different podcast tonight, as we're going to be checking in with Randy Woodworth of Woodworth Commercial and First Gen Wealth Podcast. We have another challenger in the podcast world for eyes and listens, but I did check out his first podcast, had his brother Jim on, one of our partners, and looking forward to talking with Randy on that. But as we always do, play a little catch up. I just want to throw out here right at the get-go my catch-up portion. I finally saw a Tiger game last week. Very enjoyable to go back down there. Saw Jared at work in his trailer there with all the monitors. Very, very nice crew you have there. And by the way, shout out to Brian Henry. I like that guy. I know he listens.
Yeah.
But that was cool. That was cool catching up with your work situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great gig. It was cool that you got to check it out. You have your credential, so you were allowed behind the bars and
behind the curtain.
The truck. So yeah, it's cool. I thanks for coming and checking it out. Honestly.
Yeah, I look forward to coming to a few more games this year. The afternoon games are ideal, but I got to tell you guys, and we've talked about it before. I mean, it was 92 degrees out, and if you go to an afternoon game at Comerica, man, there's limited shade in that stadium, and it's
limited is saying it nicely.
Yeah, well, I will say this though, there was some shade along the third base line as long as you're sitting back, towards the concourse. And I talked to a real nice usher, and I said, "Hey, man, what do you think about letting us just sit in the shade? If somebody comes, we'll move." And the guy said, "I'm not supposed to do that, but go for it. If they show up, move." But a crowd of about 8,000 people.
Right.
What were the odds?
Not saying, by no means am I saying you're old, but sometimes you got to play that I'm in the older generation card. You know, like if it was like maybe Jared's age, him and some buddies, you know, with a double fist and some drinks and stuff, the usher might have been like, no, you guys are fine. Sit in your seats. You guys are a little older. Maybe he said, you know what, go sit in the shade.
I think that played a big part. You know, it's all how you present it too. You know,
I know what you did. I remember going to a Tigers game with Ted when I was like probably 10 years old. He pulled this same maneuver, man. And I remember it. It's funny how vivid I remember this. He goes up to the usher, you know, sweet talks him for a minute or two, reaches his hand out for a handshake, has a nice crisp like $20 or $50 bill in his hand.
It was a 20.
Hands it over to him, and the next thing I know, we're sitting there. As a 10-year-old kid, seeing him swindle us into those seats, I thought it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen.
Coolest thing ever.
I appreciated it.
You probably thought your Uncle Ted was like in the Godfather movies or something.
Amen. Well, you know, again, guys, and I think Comerica Park is really it's a nice, beautiful park. It is really nice to look at. The concourses are great. You know, the concessions are nice. The people are nice. But the big flaw is that no shade. I don't know if there's anything they can do to somehow fix that, whether it's you know, netting up high or something. But man, it's brutal. You know, you're talking about me, the old guy. Yeah, I wanted to be in the shade. This day happened to be grade school kids day. Okay. So there was a bunch of grade school kids, and they were passing out left and right. Not literally passing out, but they had to come and get into the shade because it was bacon, man.
You know, we're not the three of us are not engineers, is what I was trying to get to. But you would think when they built the park, they would have thought of that, right?
Yeah, I would have thought
which way the sun will be during those afternoon games, like you mentioned. I'd be curious. You know, sometimes when they build stadiums, they build it with a plan in place to either add on or maybe put a roof on or, you know, other stuff. Like here in Charlotte, there's a minor league team, the Charlotte Knights, and their stadium is right uptown, like right in the heart of Charlotte. And they built it with the intention that if the major leagues ever come, they can add on the amount of seats that they would need to accommodate a Major League Baseball team. So I'd be curious if Comerica has something like that. I mean, an engineer, they could figure something out, put some sort of, but you wouldn't want it to look janky, you know, because Comerica is such a cool looking stadium. You wouldn't want to add some huge wall or something that like takes away from, you know, because you got a nice view of the skyline. And you know, all that stuff. So obviously we're a little biased. I mean, look at Jared's hat and his employer and everything. We love Comerica Park, but I think legitimately it is one of the best parks. You know, you always see posts, tweets or blogs, articles of those people that travel around the country and go to every stadium. And Comerica is always towards the top of people's list, whether they're from Michigan or not. So, but the shade thing is a legitimate beef. I've probably told the story on here before. I went to a Sunday game, day game in August, the weekend of, or like the weekend after Bud Bash. And so I was not properly hydrated heading to that game. And it was no less than 100 degrees sitting up there. I mean, it was a great game. I remember it was a huge comeback by the Tigers and they won, but it was almost like unbearable. I mean, you're sitting there buying $10 waters constantly and just chugging water. But overall, Comerica is a great experience.
It definitely, it would be cool if they put a roof on. I don't know if it's worth the amount of money or whatever. I mean, I don't know. That's for them to decide. It would be awesome.
I'd be curious on Ted's thoughts. I'm not a big fan of baseball stadiums with roofs. I get it for the weather aspect, obviously, but I think baseball's an outside sport. Could they roof
could they roof the upper deck essentially? I'm trying to think. I feel like I mean, at least Wrigley, the lower deck is shaded. I don't know. Maybe that's just a problem at every park.
Tiger Stadium.
It's not really a problem at every park, but the newer parks it is. You know, like you were starting to say, Matt, Tiger Stadium had plenty of shade. It just, the drawback was the post. And I think today's day and age in engineering and architecture, they could maybe come up with some solution that would eliminate at least
Post.
half of the type of posts they had at Tiger Stadium.
Right.
You know, I think if they had to do it all over again, and again, we've said it, it's a beautiful stadium, but the two flaws are the no shade. And I think if they had to do it again, they'd have to build it more vertical instead of having the seats go back on a horizontal angle. You know, a lot of ballparks, you're right on the action, like Cleveland and Washington. I mean, and Wrigley Field, obviously, and Fenway, you know, it's a different experience.
Yeah, those maybe some of those, kind of like you said, the little bit older stadiums, but it's definitely cool. I obviously living out of state, I haven't been to Comerica in a little while. It seems like I always look at the schedule when we are back in town, and a lot of times they're either away or it just doesn't work out with everything that we have going on. But I do miss going. That is something, you know, there's something about going to a Tigers game, even if they're playing better, but even if they stink, there's something about going to a game.
Ted, did I see that you had a score book out and you were keeping score of the game?
Classic.
I see you have it, but were you?
No, like, I don't keep score. Here's what I do, Jared. Well, I get the scorecard, so I know who's who. Obviously, you know, they have the rosters for both teams, and then it's just kind of my souvenir. You know, I mean, it shows I went to that game, and I usually cut out the article in the newspaper the next day on the recap and throw it in the scorecard, and it's there.
Now, baseball fans, I love them, man. They're old school. The infatuation with the scorecard and keeping score during the game, everyone does it. Everyone does it. I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't. It is bizarre.
Do you know how to keep score?
Man.
Do you know how to keep score?
It's not rocket science.
I'm just asking. I mean,
there's a few little nuances. Do you know how to keep, if you had to do your bowling score by hand, do you know how to do that, Jared?
Up until like, I mean, if I gave it a quick 30-second Google just on what the multipliers are with strikes and stuff like that, I could do it.
Yeah.
I would have some errors on my scorekeeping if I did baseball, just because I don't know, you know, those kind of niche things that I might not know if I was just keeping score. But for the most part, if it was a youth baseball game, I could keep score for it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious if the guys in the truck that you work with, Jared, keep score. Do they keep score? Because over the weekend I was doing a lot of the College World Series stuff. We had one of the regionals down here in South Carolina, but whenever we do baseball, softball, the producers hand out scorecards, and part of it is like Ted said, so you have the roster, the names and numbers and all that, but it's also so you can keep up with the game a little bit while you're, you know, clipping replays and building everything. I think I do it a little bit. I don't, you know, if the game turns into a blowout, it kind of starts to tail off a little bit. But if it's a good game, I'll keep up on it. Not taking any shots, but it is funny. Like the younger generation that I work with, you know, some younger people, a couple of them have no idea what this scorecard thing is or whatever. So it is cool. I don't know. It's just kind of fun. I don't know. It's like a nostalgic thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be what it is. I will say it kind of bums me out that you weren't actually keeping score during the game, because, you know, if I had to like mold what I like imagine you are, it's you keep score at the baseball game, and you've always done it. And the fact that you did that, you just bought the thing as a souvenir, and you weren't actually in there debating whether this was an error or that was a hit, it kind of bothers me.
Sorry to burst your bubble. Speaking of that, you know, just real quick, like the game they lost the other day with the pitch off the umpire's face mask.
It's wild.
Did you both must have seen it. Yeah. When I was watching it, I know obviously, you know, the catcher was crossed up, but is that legitimately a wild pitch when it's right down the middle of the plate, chest level, and bangs the umpire? I mean,
it is crazy how if there's a miscommunication, these guys throw it so fast and there's so much planning. But like if they don't know what pitch is coming, these catchers can't catch it. It's kind of mind-boggling. There was a miscommunication, whether it was slider or fastball. Cisnero heard fastball. The other people heard slider. So basically that's the result. I mean, what a bizarre finish. I mean, what a kind of crazy, you know, a depressing series against the White Sox for the Tigers, but a different kind of crazy storyline each day, and something that, you know, entertained us, you know, 2 walk-offs in the last 2 games. And then you had Reese Olson making his MLB debut and as a no-hitter going through 5 innings. So it was a fun weekend, but you would have liked to have seen them get at least 1 or 2 wins. I do have something real quick on that note. I had a loyal listener actually do some digging on a couple of our early episodes.
Okay.
And this is an exact quote taken from Ted on episode 3.
episode 3.
3-point podcast
Listen,
episode
I'm not
3.
the one doing the listening on these old episodes. I told him, I was like, this pod, man, sometimes I wonder who the hell listens to it nowadays. I can't imagine who's listening to it way back then. Anyway, this was the quote directly from Ted. The MLB needs to figure out this damn game time issue. These games need to be going 2 hours or under. They need to solve this issue ASAP. It's just funny how hypocritical we all can be. But that's a fact that you said that less than 2 or 3, or about what, four years ago, how the MLB had a crisis on their hands and they needed to change. And it's funny how once it comes full circle and now they make these changes, you were literally leading the riot with your pitchfork on how horrible that rule change was. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts?
You got me on it. I mean, what can I tell you? I didn't say at that time they needed a pitch clock. They just needed to speed the damn game up. There was other options, but okay, you got me. I mean, and let's face it, it didn't take me too long to come around, did it? After my initial old person's rant, these games have been kind of nice moving around. I'll tell you what, it takes you a little getting used to when you're at the ballpark. Now, there's all kinds of different things on the scoreboard now. They've obviously had the speed of the pitch, but now I had to figure out when I got there, okay, where do I look again for this pitch clock? And it's over back behind home plate off to the side. They have another thing they put up on the scoreboard. It's like the angle of the pitch. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. You must hate that that's no longer batting average that they show, but it's OBP. Or no, it's not OBP. It's OPS.
Yeah. I don't hate it because they still throw the batting average up there, but it's smaller. It's in a smaller spot.
Batting average isn't what it used to be, apparently. Everything's about exit velocity and every hard hit balls and all that kind of stuff.
Well, times have changed.
Yeah, not to go back to what I was doing over the weekend working College World Series, but we were mentioning games because so not every conference in college baseball uses the pitch clock, only like 3 or 4. The NCAA recognizes the pitch clock, so during tournament play, they use a pitch clock.
Right.
So some of these teams, if they played in a conference who didn't have a pitch clock, they're having to adjust a little bit. Anyway, all of our games over the weekend, under 3 hours. One of them went extra innings, so that did go over 3 hours. But we were saying, hey, man, you used to dread in TV doing baseball because some of these games would trickle over 4 hours. And Jared, you kind of know from work. I mean, Ted, you do too. But from working, there's no bathroom breaks in baseball. Right. Football, basketball, you got quarters, you got halftime and stuff like that. Baseball, I mean, unless you have, I don't even know the scenario. Sometimes there's like a coach's interview, so you got a few minutes to sprint to the bathroom. But when those games trickle over 4 hours, man, that's where, the TV crew is sitting there like, let's just get this damn thing over with. So anyway, with some of these new rules, under 3 hours, a couple of our games were like 2:45, and we're like, man, doing this for TV, 2 hours, 45 minutes, a baseball game, I'll do this all day.
Yeah.
Well, I've come around. Can we not hear about that anymore? Or am I going to hear that infinitively?
Well, that's the thing when you do a podcast or, nowadays, people are learning, no matter if you delete the tweets, delete emails, that stuff lives forever.
Oh, it does.
That's part of doing the podcast. Some of these hot takes we throw out stuff, someone could go back and be like, I feel like on episode 19, Ted said something about, or whatever.
Well, let's face it, we've all done it, right? I mean, we could go back and pick from any of us and say, what were we thinking?
You could go back to last week's episode and I'd probably sound like an idiot. So I don't think we should go back to episode 3.
Your Jonathan Scope for MVP take is not panning out right now.
Not exactly panning out. No.
Someday I got to find out who researched all the way back to episode 3.
I've got my birdies. It's like I'm like a mob boss and I have like my consigliaries out there doing the dirty work.
Nothing wrong with that. Hey, before we get off this topic, I did want to throw a couple other things in here. You guys would probably say it's old man thing. The ballpark now, it's totally cashless. I don't know if it's ever going to change again, but because of COVID, it's okay. But because I use my card all the time anyway, but I went to go buy that scorecard. $1, I had a charge. I mean, I didn't feel like going and buy a whole bunch of stuff to justify it. $1 charge on my card. Come on.
Right.
I'm sorry, man.
It is what it is.
Again, this is another one of those things. It's. I love that you have that opinion because that's what makes you. But what a pointless thing to have a problem with. It takes 2 seconds to swipe your card. You can now even tap it right on the reader, and it's done in 2 seconds.
I didn't care about that, but Jared, when you get to be older, you're gonna, you have to kind of balance the numbers.
Right.
My wife has to put that $1 ledger in our credit card receipt. That's all.
Well, and it's also, it doesn't sound like they did it there. It's also the places where they have like a $5 minimum.
Right.
And what if you're only wanting to buy that $1 thing, or say you only need a pack of gum or something like that, but they have a $5 minimum.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, so you're forcing me to buy more stuff. Like, I don't want to. I only want this scorecard. Can I just buy this?
Yeah. Well, at least they didn't do that to me.
Yeah.
And my one other thing, I don't know if it's ever going to change. I don't know if it happened because of COVID as well. You used to be able to take a small cooler into the ballpark. You could have your waters, you could have sandwiches, but it had to be a certain size cooler. You could have enough sandwiches in there for, if you had a crew of 4 people, you could have 4 sandwiches in there and 4 bottles of water. Now, absolutely not. The only thing you can bring in from the outside is 1 bottle of water. Just the way it's changed. I don't know if it ever go back.
Did you walk up to the gates with like a sack lunch and they made you leave it at the door, or what happened?
Are you talking about this trip?
Yeah, this was
no. I knew about it in advance.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. It was kind of nice to draw people into the ballpark, families. Maybe they can't afford concessions.
It is, because that's another big, huge added expense. Parking. Yes. Concessions, if you're going to buy a program or whatever, and a couple things of food or whatever. I remember going, my family, we've had tickets to the August NASCAR race at MIS since like before I was born.
Right.
And I remember when we would go, I'm sure I haven't been now in a while because, my siblings and stuff are still going. I think you can still take, like you said, like one of the smaller coolers in.
Yep.
But we used to go and we would pack, it was like a legit cooler, and you couldn't. I remember, not that we were bringing it back then, but you couldn't bring alcohol in.
No,
because they would want you to buy that in there, obviously, if you are. But yeah, we would pack snacks, sandwiches, waters, Gatorades, whatever. I feel like you would have to go through security, and they would quick look through it. Really, I think it was like no glass, some of that stuff.
Right.
But that was like a huge perk. I'm actually surprised. Surprise, I'm bringing up Disney, but at Disney, you can still bring in like a cooler and pack stuff. And I'm almost surprised that Disney's doing that, and they're not forcing people to just spend all their money on food, because we definitely always do that. We always know we're probably going to buy one meal in the park, but if we can pack like at least one sandwich or something like that, save a few bucks. It is a nice little perk.
Absolutely. Well, baseball's always been the one. I mean, you never could do that at hockey games or basketball games or football games, but baseball was one of the just kind of neat, nostalgic, and makes sense for families. They're trying to draw attendance. I don't know. Can't all be about the dollar, but that's the way I look at it.
I do remember one funny thing. I remember going to Michigan Stadium, the Big House, back in the day. Probably when my brother was in college. I think him and like one of my buddies went to a game with him and a friend or something like that. And back then you could bring in snacks, but not drinks. And the college kids would take a Pringles can and put a couple beers in a Pringles can and take that into the stadium. And I remember I was probably like, freshman, sophomore in high school or whatever, thought that was like the coolest thing ever, but
yeah,
can't do that anymore.
My crew used to sneak in the little small bottles of schnapps, and every time Michigan scored, let's drink to that, knock one back.
Wow.
Oh, well. All right, let's move away from the Tigers and baseball. And before we get to our guest, Randy, little locally here, some prep spotlight stuff brought to you by 3 Point Podcast this week. The Corunna Cavaliers, now Division II state champions. I think we may have called it first here on the podcast that they had that potential. It's the first boys title since '99, coached by Jeff Sid Sawyer. I mean, they had a great day there up at Ada. First in the 4x100, Isaac Jacobs, Nick Stroud, Wyatt, and Tarek Bauer took first there. The same four finished second in the 4x200. Wyatt took first in the long jump and was all-state also in the 100-meter dash in 10.93 seconds. Now, right now, we're scheduled to get the Bauer boys on next podcast and talk about maybe the track season and their recruitment, what we can talk about, Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we don't want to get them into any trouble with the MHSAA, but, that'll be really cool to talk to them about everything, track, upcoming football season. Maybe their college aspirations and stuff. But yeah, we mentioned it. I mean, first of all, congrats to all those guys. That is just so cool. Add another state championship to that Corunna city line sign that you see all the time coming into town.
Running out of room.
Yeah. Yeah, with all the Odyssey of the Mind and all that kind of stuff. But really, really cool to see because, it was back in my day. They went back-to-back, 98, 99.
Yep.
And they hadn't won one since then. So if you want to call that a drought, not like Corunna is stacking up a ton of state championships, but, a little bit of a drought for the track program. But right, you kind of mentioned it, alluded to it. We said it a few weeks ago. When you have two or definitely a few athletes like what Corunna has right now, you have a great shot at winning a state championship because you plug them in to the individual events, to the team events, the relays, and you're going to knock out, 7, 8, 9, 10 events right there.
Right.
So it's really cool to see. And they're going to be back next year. So,
I mean, if there was no limit on the amount of events you could run, I mean, the two Bauer brothers, I mean, shoot, they could high jump, probably place in that. I mean, hurdles, you almost think hurdles would be maybe their best event just with with their jumping ability and their sprinting speed. Yeah, it's like they probably could have swept the entire freaking meet. So that was the coolest part to me. It's there's nothing like kind of a heroic type performance. I mean, we still remember Kemba Walker for that UConn run way back in the day. It's cool when you see, obviously it's a team event, and I mean 4x1, 4x2, two fastest teams we've ever had in Corunna. That's a 4-member team, both of them. But it's just cool to see those two guys really kind of just strap on the backpack and bring it home.
Yeah,
and one of them they broke their dad's record, right?
Yep. I think it was in the 4x200. I think I could be wrong on that too. I have the article, but I don't have it right here handy. But yeah, a record goes down by Dustin. So yeah, but he's still a proud dad. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. And also in track and field, Ovid Elsie's pole vaulter Trice Tokar won his second straight championship, going 15 foot even. Langsburg pole vaulter Jack Borgman finished second at 14.9. In baseball, Corunna lost their district opener. It was the bad karma that I didn't pay the $1,500 to go broadcast it. That was what it was, right?
I mean, we talked about it last week. Yes, maybe Ted, maybe you're the one that ruined it. If you would have been broadcasting, they would have had more eyes, better vibes. Yeah. We brought it up last week, and we said that friend of the podcast, Goose Poop, with his projections, did not have Corunna coming out of their district. And he was right. I mean, obviously we wanted to see the Cavs move on, but Goose Poop knows what he's talking about, man. What's the success rate in football, Jared? You knew it. It was like 78% or something crazy like that.
It was.
So it's a shame. It just goes to show. I mean, that's a tough sport to make a run in.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have a lot of luck on your side. Sometimes the bats just aren't awake, and you don't get the hits. Maybe a pitcher has just one bad outing. So much has to go right in baseball to make a run. It's tough because I mean they had a heck of a team.
Yeah,
so.
Goose Poop knows what he's talking about, and I obviously didn't. When I talked a week or so ago, I said, I think Cavaliers might be the favorites, and then another listener sends a little note over to me saying all the stats. I mean, how could you have gone against Flint Powers? They were obviously the favorite. Lake Fenton beat Corunna 2 out of 3 games heading into that game. And Lake Fenton beat the Cavaliers by 1, and Powers spanked them 10-0. So, and they got a couple different Division I kids on their team. Very good ball club. Yeah. Speaking of ball clubs, Owasso, the young softball squad, won their district at Fowlerville. They improved to 23-15. New Lothrop also won their softball district, and back to baseball for a second. Langsburg and Chesaning move on and won their districts. And you talked about it for just a second, Matt. Corunna Cavaliers, Odyssey of the Mind, the 6th to 8th graders, another world championship in Division II. Another world championship, man.
World. I just always laugh, and not in any sort of negative way. Laugh at world championship.
Right.
World. That's insane. So that's awesome.
That really is. It says a lot for that program, and that's 7 world championships now for Corunna. All right, I think enough here for our opening segment. Let's talk a little real estate, some other stuff, some sports maybe with Randy Woodworth coming up right after this.
Looking to buy items online, go to crauctions.com. All you need to do is download the app to your phone or computer and start buying and selling today. crauctions.com will market your items all over the country and get them sold. If you are looking to buy something, we can help with that too. Just go to crauctions.com. Search our inventory and place your bid. Plus, there are online auctions for farm machinery, firearms, automobiles, and truckloads of overstocked items. It's fast, it's easy, and you will get results. Get the app and check out crauctions.com today.
All right, guys. So next up on the podcast is fellow Corunna Cavalier alum, Randy Woodworth. Everyone who lives around Corunna, you see the signs everywhere, Woodworth Commercial. He's the CEO and founder of Woodworth Commercial. But he also just got into our game here, the podcast game. First Gen Wealth is a new podcast that you just launched. So that's part of what sparked hey, maybe this would be a good time to have Randy on. You can follow him on Instagram at Randy_Woodworth. Give him a follow there. You can see, I know you post clips and stuff like that and a bunch of other stuff. So give Randy a follow over there. So first of all, Randy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Terrific. I'm glad to be here. This is,
awesome.
You guys are local legends. So this is awesome.
Yeah, this is maybe more a little flavor for the Corunna Wasso people, but not necessarily. We'll see what we get into, because I think we have some good chats with our guests. But I want to ask, so up there above Jared's left shoulder over there, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing is one of our great partners. And you know them well. Your brother Jim.
I do.
He's involved. He works for them. He was your first guest on First Gen Wealth podcast. So that's where this question comes from.
Yeah.
But my question is, so Jim was a great basketball player at Corunna, went on to have a really good college career also. You're the older brother. When did it hit you that I can't hang with him anymore? He's got me.
Yeah. I remember the first time he finally scored in a backyard basketball or front yard basketball in Vernon there against me. I was like, this is going to get a little challenging, but he was a late bloomer. He didn't really hit his stride. I think I don't even think he was 6 foot yet until maybe his sophomore year. And so I was already out of school, you know what I mean? So I got to beat his, can I say, I'll say beat his butt. I beat his ass for the entire school, our entire school age years. So I say he scored on me. I think there was a moment where there was like, oh, this kid can play. And I just didn't play him anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let him beat me. So I just can't play him anymore. Yeah. We're just going to move on. But yeah, he was a late bloomer. I mean, I think he grew another 3 inches after senior year going into play college at Madonna. I mean, he really came into his body late, and obviously, he's a specimen now. But he definitely was the of the two of us. He got sports genes. But I was probably I'm all around athlete. I'm better at everything, but I just didn't play sports. I worked. I was the entrepreneur. The first entrepreneur of the family. So I started working when I was baling hay freshman year. I mean, 8th grade, I was always working. So that was my thing.
Classic summer job. If you grew up in Shiawassee County, baling hay, you probably knew someone. Everyone knows someone who has a farm.
$5 an hour if you're lucky. Puking in the field, 900 degrees outside. Oh, it's the worst.
That's the worst. But so that's where my first official question will come to. So you're talking about you're an entrepreneur. You've been working your whole life. First Gen Wealth podcast is the name of it. Again, go search it out if you listen to podcasts. Where's the idea come from? And then what's your guys' goal, or what message are you trying to get out there with First Gen Wealth podcast?
Yeah. So pretty simply, both my brother and I didn't have a huge entrepreneurial family. We didn't come up in any sort of wealthy family by any means. We ate a lot of tuna cheesies, and you're thankful if you don't know what that is. So we had very humble beginnings, and both of us obviously built successful companies and continue to grow and build those. But there's a lot of weird things about money and how to grow a legacy and generational wealth that just escapes most people. They're just not taught that. We're not taught that in schools. We're not taught that at the dinner table, especially around tuna cheesies. But, for me, it's like, I'm in a business that can really lead to wealth and financial independence for people. And I want to kind of share that and help my team members, my clients, my friends and family to learn that, hey, you don't have to just depend on your paycheck from your job. Like, you can have other lines of income and other ways of making money and build something that can be passed down. So that first gen wealth is kind of like the story of building it, and then hopefully building it in a great enough sense that you can pass it down. Right. So what am I trying to accomplish is that, share that story. And then obviously, I'm in business. I'm hoping we can get a few clients out of the thing or some customers out of the deal and help them, build their portfolios in real estate. So that's the genesis.
It honestly sounds like you're talking to me. I don't know what I should be doing with my money right now. When I was coming up with a list of questions for you, selfishly, they're kind of all geared toward me. So I'll just say this. I'm 24 years old. Without giving away everything that you guys would talk about on your podcast, is there one thing that I should do tomorrow that should help set me up, for the rest of my life, whether it's whatever, 401k or something?
And Jim hit it. I don't know if you listened to the podcast with my brother or not, but Dakota, my son, is 25, so same age, Jared. Right. And, he bought a duplex that he lives in one side, rents out the other, and he's living rent free. And the money that he would typically use for a house payment or rent payment, so $700, $800, $900 a month, he's now able to save towards buying a second duplex. And the reason you can do that, if you live in it, it only requires like 3.5% down. So in this area where we're at, a $90,000 duplex you can get in for under $3,000. You can save that up pretty quick, right? And then you can live in one side and have your tenant pay all your expenses. And as you build up your savings to buy the next one, now you've got 4 units, yours, the one next to you, and then the other 2 that you've been able to buy, bringing in cash flow. And by the time you're my age, dude, you don't have to have any more podcasts. You can do whatever you want, It takes about, 5 years to build a real, if you're diligent at it, 5 to 7 years, you can build a portfolio that completely replaces any income you'd get anywhere else. But having, you're not married, are you, Jared?
No.
Dude, it's perfect then. You can get into something like that relatively inexpensively. You can borrow it from Uncle Teddy and get into a duplex there and you're started. Now you have a $90,000 asset that literally somebody else is paying for you.
So I'll be honest, when I look, and that's a lot of advice that, my parents have been giving me, I got to get I'm living in an apartment right now. Got to get a house or a condo or something like that. I'll be honest, it's a little scary. I don't know what the first step should be for listeners out there who are, whether they're in an apartment or whatever. What should the first move be? Because I'll be honest, I'm totally lost when it comes to
that.
Talk to Success Group.
That logo next to your head right there. Absolutely. So with a duplex, that's a residential property. It's not a commercial mortgage. So it's a typical mortgage broker that can do that. And Success Group Mortgage can absolutely set you up for that. Now there's the whole other thing, like, hey, you're gonna have to mow your lawn. You know what I mean? Right. Like there's that type of stuff. And a lot of it's scary. Like, oh my gosh, if my tenant's toilet fails, then I gotta, yep, you sure do. You got to go plunge that son of a gun. But you know what? You got to go plunge yours too if you bomb it. So, you know what I mean? For a free place to live in a platform to grow generational wealth, you can suck it up and do it. There's YouTube videos for literally everything, and everything else you can just call a plumber. Now, obviously that takes a little bit out of your cash flow, but so what? Because somebody else is paying that for you, and you're starting your, investment journey. And that typical dollars, so you're paying rent right now, right?
Yeah. That
goes away. You're now living for free. So that money you continue to save, and that becomes your down payment for the next one. Because the next one you probably won't be able to get in for 3.5% down. You can only do that one time in the one you're living in. You'll need 20%. So again, on 90,000, that, you're talking 18,000. But if you're paying $800 a month in rent, that's 2 years worth of savings of being disciplined on that money. and you'll have another one. And then you've got 4 units paying $800 a pop. That's $3,200 a month. It doesn't take very much math to figure out that you can get there pretty quickly, you know.
Well, right there, some good advice for our young guy and our other young listeners out there. Randy, you know what you're talking about. And I love the way that you talked about your background with your brother. I did listen and watch your podcast. Well done. You can tell you're the oldest brother. I appreciate that. I'm the oldest brother too. You definitely pick up on that. But I've talked about it before to other guests, and I think you'll appreciate this. It's all about the hustle, right? I mean, you got to put the hustle and the work into making that money work for you, right?
Absolutely. And I always say you make your money where you spend your time. So if you're willing to spend a little bit of time on learning this stuff, and you know, Jared, outside of this podcast, happy to sit down. So is my brother. We can have a cup of coffee and strategize this stuff. I mean, you have to be willing to give some time to learn the stuff you don't know. But if you're serious about it, just like Ted said, you can hustle and you can make it. And starting off where you're at, that's a great position to be in. Matt's married. He's got kids. But he could be doing the same thing. I mean, it's all about a discipline of a mindset and deciding that this is the direction I'm going, and we're just gonna do it. And there's some sacrifices that are gonna be made. When you're rolling in dough, like, you know, the voice of Shiawassee County Sports, Ted Patel, you don't have to worry about this stuff, right? So, you know, but even at Ted, I'm sure you've got a little nest egg there that, you know, has been plummeted and beat up over the last few years with the stock market and stuff. Yeah. Probably, you know, wouldn't have been a bad idea to get into some real estate investment trusts where you're not an active participant in the real estate management. You're just taking advantage of those assets. And for me, it became a necessity because I'm a spender and I like, you know, shoes and stuff like that. You know, I like cool stuff. And if like we were talking, you can hustle and you can make that money, but then what? Right. Well, then you spend it and you don't got it anymore. Once it's gone, what I always say, money without giving a purpose finds a way to disappear. If you got $15 in your pocket in cash, you won't by the end of the day. It'll find its way out. So having direct purpose for your dollars is the only way. So what I'm saying is I protected myself against myself by investing, by buying assets that I can't go and pull out the dollars tomorrow. Like I got to go through a process and sell or refinance. Like I'm protected. So those dollars that I worked really hard to earn are now sitting somewhere that I can't screw with them for a little while. You know?
No, I appreciate everything you're saying, because I think the way that you started this off is something that my wife and I, she's also a Corunna Cavalier alum, our 20-year reunion is in a few weeks, by the way, Randy.
Yeah, Molly just said the same thing. She graduated at the same time as you guys. So she just realized that yesterday. So
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But, you know,
hey, shout out, by the way, to the Corunna boys track team. Wow. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
State champs, go Cavs. I know that. I have to say that quietly. That's why I'm outside, right? Because my mother-in-law is Joella, and she just won districts there at Owasso softball. So, you know, I got to be quiet with that go Cavs stuff around here. I got to be careful.
Who's also a former 3 Point podcast guest.
Right. She's great.
after the state championship, one of the best interviews that we've had, honestly. But back to what I was saying, you know, not to take a shot at the way that we grew up, but this stuff wasn't really talked about a whole lot. Maybe certain families did, but I don't think it was a normal conversation. Especially, we all love Corunna, you know, the school, but we didn't have a class.
Matt, we were all broke. We didn't know these. we didn't know how to talk about money, man. We're all broke, eating tuna cheesies and baling hay, man. They don't do that in Birmingham.
No, and that's it's one of those things. Like looking back. So, Jared, I mean, you know, you're in the age. You just talked about it, and Randy kind of broke it down for you. It's one of those things, you know, you look back, and it's not necessarily a regret, but, you know, you look back, and I wish I would have had a different frame of mind in my mid-20s. I was mostly worried about when I saved money, it was to save money to go on a ski trip, or it was to save money to go up to the UP for like a boys' weekend or something like that. I didn't have the mindset of saving for the future necessarily. And I don't want to work until I'm 70. I mean, Ted, you're semi-retired. I see my parents are full into retirement mode and getting to enjoy every minute of being retired. And it's one of those things that I think is a conversation people should have more. How can I set myself up so I don't have to work until I'm 75 and I can live comfortably? And it's a shame that, you know, it's not a normal conversation. It should be. It's a big part of living and working in this country is investing properly and stuff like that. So I appreciate it. I'm going to be very interested in your podcast.
And I mean, it doesn't, like, you can have regret, but really you look, when I was Jared's age, I was, you know, I still didn't know it. I mean, I really didn't get going until about 11 years ago. I'm 45. So that was 33, 34 years old. And like I said, you can replace an income in 5 to 7 years, but then you can double that again in like 3 or 4, and then double it again in like 2 or 3, because once you have a portfolio, it can start to spiral, and you can go from 0 to $1 million. That'll take you about 7 years, but then to go to from 1 million to 2 million, take you another 3, and then from 2 to 10 might only also take another 3.
Right.
So the snowball effect from having those assets and going to a bank and saying, look, I have a history of you know, this and being successful at it, it opens a lot of doors. And you know, you just don't know that. You don't learn that.
Yeah, you got to learn it. And like you said, you got to have the conversations. So maybe that's where it starts. One thing I wanted to ask you, I was very curious about, you know, when we have you on the podcast, again, we've brought up Corunna a number of times now, Owasso. You've stuck in the area.
Yeah.
Ted stayed in the area. Jared,
that's Joe Allen's daughter's fault.
Right. Because I mean, you know, being honest, you know, with your entrepreneur mindset and, you know, the success you've been having, not that there's anything wrong with sticking around, but you probably could have moved elsewhere.
Oh, my job would be so much easier in so many other places, Matt. There's no question. You know what I mean?
Right. But my question is, you know, I love asking when we have these coaches, Joe Allen, when we have other coaches from the area on. Ted and Jared know one of my favorite questions I always ask is about the community and why community support for your athletic teams, or what is so important or cool about the community you live in, you know, whoever the coach is that we're talking to. So why, you know, you and your brother, you know, investing in Corunna and Owasso, like what is it about investing back into your community that is such a big part of what you guys do?
Well, for me, it's kind of cool to be able to go and get a coffee and, you know, get something to eat, or, you know, shop in places and have those tenants now then return some of my dollars in rent. Like, so that's pretty awesome. And the other thing is, like, I'm here, like my kids, you know, my younger kids are just, you know, finished 3rd grade and 5th grade. So I'm going to be here for another 10 years, no matter what. We're not moving them out of the school system. So I want some cool stuff, you know. We started in 2013, you know, investing in downtown Owasso because there was a whole kind of, I guess, transition of building owners and business owners that were just retiring, moving out, and being done. And so at the same time, down in Detroit, a guy called Dan Gilbert was doing this whole thing, you know, in investment in Detroit. And Jim and I were like, man, we can do this here, obviously on a much smaller scale, but we can really affect the community and what kind of lifestyle opportunities are going to be for entertainment, for food, for all those things, shopping, dining, you name it, by investing some of our dollars. And the idea hopefully was that, and it's working to a majority of degree, but you know, as everything kind of builds, our investment increases and our building values go up. And I'm wearing my Foster Coffee shirt because, you know, those guys were one of the first ones we really went hard and heavy in with an investment. They had a dream and an idea and no real capital. And we took a risk on those two kids, kids, and you know, but it's 8 years ago. They were in their mid-20s, and they knew coffee though. I didn't know coffee, but I know guys that know their thing, right? Like I can recognize somebody's passionate about something, and I'm like, all right, they're going to succeed. Nick knows marketing, John knows coffee. They're going to get this thing figured out. And so we invested with them, and then that led to, you know, what was Lily's and going to soon to be Sakura Hibachi Grill. Breaking news.
All right.
3 Point Podcast. We're going to have a hibachi grill downtown. So
That's awesome.
those things start to build on each other, you know, and if I'm going to live here, I want cool stuff.
Yeah.
I want cool stuff. So, you know, I'm going to do what I can to affect that. And that's why I travel all over the country multiple times a year. I'm leaving for Dallas in the morning. Like we meet with people, we bring investment in retailers and things that wouldn't normally even know what Owasso or Corunna or Shiawassee County in general is. We go out to them and just beat them with it. And it's to the point now, you know, I've been doing that for 15, 17 years. And I'll walk up like, what do you got in Owasso, Randy? Like they know what I'm doing, you know. It's, and when I say Owasso, what they care about is M21, you know, between State Road and Gould Street. That's our thing. That's all we got. And that's why I said earlier, yeah, it would be a lot easier to do this in other places, because we literally have in our county like one commercial district. You go to Lansing, they have 25 of those things, right? So, you know, being here, living here, having family here, it's just important that, you know, I just have taken it upon myself to really do what I can to positively affect my personal experience, which obviously, you know, benefits for the most part everybody else, because I want cool stuff here. So let's get some cool stuff.
I know you said you kind of backtracked when you said it, but honestly, it's a great comparison to what Dan Gilbert was doing in Detroit. It's very similar to what you and your brother are doing in Owasso. Like you said, you know, maybe it's not to the same scale, but that's a very good comparison, because I honestly, my whole entire life felt like there was never new businesses coming into Owasso. And I don't know if it's entirely because of you guys, but I mean, it seems like even within the last few years, we've seen a lot of new companies and businesses come in. So I think it's just been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes an advocate, right? And for whatever reason, you know, we've picked up that flag, and I mean, I was just out in Vegas the end of May for a national conference I go to every year, and it's all the retailers that you've ever heard of, like even and plenty that you haven't, where they're all converge in the Las Vegas Convention Center, and we pitch sites. And this was a big one for me because we were talking about the Welcome In site that, you know, everybody in our area is very familiar with. So we've got some great things coming for that. And yeah, I mean, I just kind of fell in love with the commercial real estate business, and so de facto, I live here, so this is what you do. You go out and you pitch sites, and for me, it's just it's Shiawassee County over and again, and we've been able to land some pretty cool stuff.
You mentioned that it was only 11 years ago that you kind of really started getting going into it.
Personal investment, yeah, the personal investment side.
What was your kind of backstory? Even we can go back to, you know, whatever, when you were 20. How did you find yourself even in this?
Oh man, so that's a whole nother podcast, but I mean, I'll give you what I can on the short version of it. Right, so I was in the construction industry, and in high school I was leaving, you know, as a kid I met in Frank Corin's ag class, Dave Bannister, who I think is in prison at the moment, but whatever. He had a construction business, his dad did, so we would leave after school and go and do construction. And so for years I was in that industry. Fast forward to about year 2000, my best friend Jim Warfel, Corunna grad, 1996 with myself, couldn't pass his real estate license. His family owned La Valley Real Estate. He's a great friend of mine. And so I decided to help him. We took the classes together. We ended up getting licensed. Fast forward September 30th, 2001, he died. He was showing a house, had a pulmonary embolism, collapsed in the driveway, end of life, 24th birthday. So that next week I went into real estate, and that was houses. So took me about 3 or 4 years to realize that sucked. I mean, no disrespect to guys that sell houses, but it wasn't for me. Like I like, you know, I like the commercial side because I can, you know, develop more. It's more about numbers and math and not carpet and paint, you know, whether or not my couch will fit in this living room. That drove me nuts. So I shifted and pivoted into commercial real estate, went into, started with a firm called CBRE, which is the world's, the global leader. And they've got the biggest company as far as commercial real estate goes. I was based out of Lansing for a couple of years. Being a Corunna Cavalier, I was a bit of a lone wolf, and that corporate structure didn't fit me very well. So in 2010, I started Woodworth Commercial, and here we are. So there you go, Jared. That was my brief as I can be, kind of delve into where I'm at now. I got into it completely by tragedy with the death of my best friend, because I was actually still doing construction when he died.
Yeah.
I was licensed, but I wasn't really practicing.
Yeah, I remember that well, and I remember that your whole crew. I remember you as a young high school kid, Randy, and
Oh yeah.
you had balls then, you got balls now.
Well, your daughter is a graduate with us. Amy's a 96er, so
that's right. That's exactly right.
Well,
but I was going to ask you,
when I was in high school, though, you know what they said? Lack self-control. I don't understand it. Like, I do.
I would have never said that.
I mean, I got the same comments. If you guys got those report cards from Corunna, number 13 and number 26, and those of you that know, you know, and it was every time.
you know, Randy, being in commercial sales, I go back because I'm the old guy of the podcast. I remember Richard Harsh, wasn't he? And I was going to ask you if you tied into him at all before you got really going on your own.
That's funny. If you think back to that time, it was like a trifecta. You had Richard Harsh die, 9/11, then Jim Warfel. I felt like the world was in it. It was like boom, 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 and it was like, holy cow, what is happening? What's next? And Richard, we did cross paths, but I wasn't really in the business. I was still in construction,
Okay.
So there was a vacuum in our county for quite a while where nobody was doing it.
Right.
Richard was instrumental in bringing Walmart and Home Depot to the area. And then that, when he passed, there was nobody else that did it. And it wasn't until about 2004 when I really started kind of pushing Mike Leslie, or 2003, whatever it was. You're like, look, man, we gotta do something with commercial, and I can't sell these houses. So he's like, all right, let's go. But until you really get into a business like the CBREs, the big Colliers, the JLLs, the firms that are just massive, you don't realize how little you know. You think you're doing something out here, but you're really not. You don't have the knowledge, and I was very ignorant to it. But yeah, I did have some balls, and I still do, Ted. You're absolutely right. And it takes a lot of balls to get out there and put your money and your reputation at risk every time you try to do something new. But I also have really big shoulders, and I could care less. You know what I mean? Like, we'll just move on to the next thing if that thing doesn't work. And we don't. It was a phrase in construction that we heard all the time: water on a duck's back. We let it roll off, man, like water on a duck's back.
You got to. Well, before we let you out of here, Randy, just one quick question. You mentioned about the Welcome Inn. And I know you're instrumental in the whole Matthews building thing too, which looks so much better now, by the way.
Well, don't even go there, dude.
I know. But Welcome Inn, can you give us any tips on that? What's coming? Any hints?
I mean, I posted the site plan that we're working with on the Woodworth Commercial Facebook page. So we do have a design. We've got about 60,000 square feet going in the back, kind of in line with Walmart. We're going to connect that parcel to both the TSC Tractor Supply Company lot and Walmart. So you're going to have really nice access across the back there without having to go in and out of 21. And then two, probably either a bank, fast food, something up front, outlots that are going to be sold off. We're talking with a lot of people, and there are two, I would say, imminent things happening. But until those, documents are inked, it's just a jinx, man. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Fair enough on that. No problem.
No problem. Let me ask you one thing before Ted signs you off.
Yep.
I've mentioned this to you before. It's not Shiawassee County. Sports Creek.
Yep.
Perfect site for a Topgolf.
Oh, and Menards and Costco and I mean, oh my gosh. So those guys that own that are out there in Florida, and they're still in sports track racing.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money, man. They don't,
because there's still a sports book there, right? Like it's still.
I don't know. No,
there's not.
No, they don't do it anymore. They don't do it anymore. So. No, I know. That's it, man. That is a prime site, and you can come right off the highway. It's right there for you. It is. Good eye, Matt. Good eye.
It's just it's the Topgolf thing. I've been like, man,
here, I can tell you what's not happening on Welcome Inn so that people can stop asking. There's there's definitely no cannabis, but there's no Target. Target is not coming. Okay. So, and the reason is we don't have enough population in Shiawassee County to support it. We need about double, really, what we've got. We only have 70,000 people in Shiawassee County, and there's just retailers that just aren't coming. No matter how much I pound and sledge, it just ain't happening. So, so there you go. You've solved the riddle. It ain't Target.
All right, that's our answer for the night.
Yeah.
Randy, we appreciate you taking the time out, and it's kind of ironic that you made an appearance on the podcast before our partner Jim, but the oldest gets the benefit.
No, that's incorrect.
Did we have Jim on?
Yeah, we have Jim on.
Okay.
Well, Jim can actually talk sports. You know, I don't. This is sports talk, right? Isn't that the premise?
Sometimes we get a little bit off track.
I drank some Lions Kool-Aid last year. I mean, I got into it. You know, I'm a Tom Brady fanboy, so you know,
Good.
I don't really have anybody to root for anymore. He's all done. He's going to Disney World and stuff.
Well, you got the Wolverines to root for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually at the Fiesta Bowl this year. That was oh my God, electric. I mean, what a game!
Still
how that wasn't targeting.
No kidding. How was that not a touchdown too?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Even like
This is the year.
Even
this
the
is the year for Michigan.
Toads, whatever the heck they are behind us, they're like, that's touchdown. That's touchdown.
Right.
Changed it. It changed the entire game, but they hung in there. I mean, that game was back and forth the whole way.
Yeah.
And you know, we got up out of our seats at the end there when JJ went down, and it's like they're showing that on the screen. We're like, oh my gosh, let's go back down to our seats. That's targeting. That's what targeting is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're gonna have the ball at like the 50 with another 21 seconds left or whatever it was, 51 seconds left. Yeah, such is life. Yeah, this is our year, though, Matt Burns. This is our year.
Amen.
This is the year. Ohio State's breaking in a new quarterback.
I can't believe you
Alabama's
actually
breaking
said
in a
that
new
name
quarterback.
out loud on this podcast. That is disgusting.
Everyone else is breaking in new quarterbacks, new offensive coordinators, new something. Michigan is bringing everyone back. So this is the year they let us all down, basically, is what.
Probably right.
Harbaugh will be on a head on a platter again at the end of the year.
Mike, you got to win a college football playoff game. That's the barometer. Got to win one this year.
Got to win. Got to. Well, Randy, tell our listeners one more time, maybe best spot they can check you out, your new podcast, all that good stuff before we sign you out.
Oh, we're all over the place, but pretty much if you go at Randy Woodworth with or without an underscore, you can find me anywhere. In Woodworth Commercial on the Grams, on the Facebooks, on the LinkedIn's. We're all over social, everywhere. So recently on Twitter. So, you know, I'm tweeting.
It's kind of funny. We're doing it on the computer here, and I had a pop-up. You posted something. I don't know if it was earlier on LinkedIn. Popped right up.
Always be marketing, baby. Come on.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go.
All right, Randy. Hey, appreciate the time, brother. We'll have to catch up with you again, and I'm sure Jared will make an appointment.
I was just going to say, Jared, hit me up for coffee, brother. Let's do it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. You too, Matt. Damn it.
Honestly, Ted too. Sounds like everybody.
What the hell? You need to cool.
Why not?
We gotta force them right here. Dude, yeah, like $25,000 a piece. That's $100,000. That's $1 million asset we can go get. Let's go.
Right.
And your brother backing it with Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. You know, he's already in on it. So
way to get those plugs in. I love it. All right, guys. I'm gonna leave the studio.
Yeah. See you later.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks a lot.
Success Group Mortgage and Servicing is Shiawassee County's only licensed mortgage broker, lender, and servicer. That means you get exclusive products not found anywhere else. If you are looking to purchase a home or refinance a home in Florida, Hawaii, or Michigan, stop what you're doing and give Success Group Mortgage and Servicing a call. 989-720-4380. That's 989-720-4380.
All right, guys, that was fun chatting with Randy. We kind of open things up now to potpourri, and let's go to the NBA. Let's just start right there. I mean, as we record this on Monday evening, the series is evened up. Miami came back in Game 2 and played Miami ball, and we got a 1-1 series, and they've taken over home court advantage. It looks like it's going to go deeper than I thought.
Yeah. I was shocked to see them. I thought the Nuggets were probably going to sweep this series, maybe win it in 5. I think that showed us a lot that we keep underestimating this Miami Heat team, and they keep proving us wrong. And I honestly, it's funny looking back on like Jimmy Butler's career with all he's done, because I feel like the entire time he's been in the NBA, he's just been an afterthought. even with all these runs. I mean, 2 different finals trips. I mean, he's been in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think 3 or 4 different times. I mean, we remember the Sixers. They took the Raptors and Kawhi Leonard all the way to Game 7, lost on the last second shot. If that shot doesn't drop, they might have won that title that year. So I think my biggest takeaway after Game 2 is, one, Spoelstra knows what he's doing. I mean, the zone really screwed up Jokic and their entire offense and what they were trying to do, which is kind of crazy to say because I always hated going against zones at my entire life in basketball. It used to mind F me, used to mind F my teams always. And it's good to see that even in the NBA, it still can mind F you sometimes. So I think, one, it's Spoelstra is damn good. And then I think Jimmy Butler, I think the media, us as fans, just over the course of his entire career, I know he didn't have a great Game 2, but he had some big shots down the stretch. And I mean, he's the leader of that squad. We really we painted him in the wrong light. He's one of the top players in this league, and I think it's time that we kind of give him his flowers, man. He's incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You mentioned a little bit of an afterthought. I looked it up real quick while you were saying that because I knew it was low. There's guys like LeBron, Steph, whoever, Giannis. They make the All-Star game every season. It's just their career. Jimmy Butler's been playing basically 12 years, and he's only made 6 All-Stars. So a little bit of an afterthought. He's got a few all-NBA teams. But right, whenever you hear that list of best players in the NBA, no one ever says Jimmy Butler. I mean, maybe when you get down to like the 20s, 20, 25 range, maybe something like that. But yeah, he's never up there in that conversation. And maybe he doesn't necessarily deserve to be up there with a Steph Curry, Giannis, Luka, all those kind of guys, Jokic. But he's exactly what this team needs. It's kind of, we've mentioned before, the 2004 Pistons, and it's not an exact comparison, but the Pistons didn't necessarily have that one true superstar. I mean, maybe Chauncey, but he wasn't like, in MVP conversations all the time and stuff like that. But, you had leaders, you had guys that came in and got the job done. I mean, Duncan Robinson was buried on the bench. He got his contract like a year or 2 ago and basically fell out of the rotation. And now, I mean, they're probably looking at him like, man, you're back in the rotation, even when Tyler Hero comes back.
For sure.
With his shot making, he's actually making shots at the rim too. He used to just basically be a 3-point shooter. So yeah, it's kind of like, is it surprising? Like you said, Jared, people kept writing the Heat off. So maybe in a sense, it shouldn't be surprising because people kept writing them off. I saw someone throw some stats out. The Nuggets role players like Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, Caldwell Pope, they put up their shooting numbers versus the Lakers, and then their shooting numbers in these first 2 games of the finals, and they're like vastly different. So maybe that's something, and it's crazy to think because the Nuggets, it's been 2 games at home, and you always hear the cliche that role players are better at home than on the road. So maybe the Heat are setting themselves up for, to pull an upset, but no, Jokic hasn't fallen off at all. What do you have? Scored 41 in Game 2, and he had a triple-double in Game 1, so he's fine. He needs you can't do it all by yourself. He needs Murray.
He is so good, isn't he?
It's ridiculous.
I was going to ask you guys this. We all saw when Mark Jackson didn't even have him in his top 5 for MVP. Have you picked up on when he's calling a game how he's going way overboard bragging about Joker? You catch that?
No, I don't. Here's why I think about that. We talked about it. He had the ballot. It kind of came and went. I mean, Jokic is kind of shown, I think, proven to a lot of people. I mean, I feel like a lot of people felt like Jokic winning 3 straight MVPs was not.
But he should have been top 5 in his ballot, right? Should have been top 5 in his ballot, for God's sakes.
I mean, it's almost like if you're not going to vote him one. Listen, I'm not defending him not having it in his ballot, but no, I don't think necessarily. It is a little bit awkward. It was like with the first series of the playoffs, it was a little bit awkward with the whole part. But I'm past it now. I think everybody's got to pass it.
I kind of gag still. It just he goes overboard. But hey, why wouldn't he? I guess if he wouldn't have had that diss in the first place, I probably wouldn't even be paying attention to it. So I get what you're saying.
He did. I know we've brought it up before, and he did not have Jokic on his ballot. He did come out and say it was like a brain fart type of thing.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things like, how do you have that brain fart? It's like doing the NFL MVP and leaving Mahomes off. Like you can't, if you're doing the NFL MVP, you can't forget about Mahomes. So
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
whether it was
I will
an actual,
say, I'll put my hand up. I didn't think Jokic had this in him. I didn't think he's basically shown he's like the best offensive player in the league. Almost head and shoulders above the rest. It almost seems like watching this playoff run unfold and how they just get so many good looks and it's all run through him. I didn't see that. We haven't seen that in the past. So I think he's proven a lot of people wrong, Mark Jackson included, on his run. So it's been fun to watch. They are a blast. It looks like the type of team that I would have loved to have played with. And I think everybody would agree with that. I mean, Jokic is the perfect kind of superstar type player where honestly he had the 40 ball in game 2, but that's not how he wants to play. I mean, his ideal game is, maybe 20 points and, up there to almost nearly 15 assists. That's how he wants to play. Right. So that just shows how the Heat kind of really took him out of his element.
Well, he's awesome, and it's going to be a good series, so looking forward to the rest of it. Now, I'm looking forward to the Pistons someday getting a little excitement. The big story, they signed Monty Williams, biggest contract, at least right now, for a head coach in the NBA. Do you think that's the right move?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's not gonna get me out of the door running to the ticket booth to get season tickets, but I think given the coaching candidates that were out there, I think it was the right hire. I think everyone's got a positive, I mean, with the way NBA coaches are fired, hired, and passed around in this league, I don't think Monty Williams necessarily deserved to be fired by the Suns. Just you need a new voice in there. Yeah. And I felt like the Pistons kind of needed a new voice, with Casey. I didn't think Casey did anything wrong during his tenure necessarily. It's just you need new voices. And I love the hire they made today with Steven Silas, adding him to his staff. I think Monty Williams will do a great job. Do I think they're going to be contending for an NBA title next year? No. But I think in terms of the candidates that were out there, the candidates that were brought to Tom Gores, and all that sort of thing, I think Monty Williams is a home run hire in that sense.
Yeah, especially given who was available for head coaches. I mean, unless you were going to try and get a Doc Rivers or something like that, Monty Williams was probably at the top of the list as far as available coaches. So that's great. The money part, honestly, at first when I saw the amount, it was like, oh wow, that's a lot. I don't get people being upset about that. It's not my money. Right. It's not affecting the salary cap. It's not affecting, the players they can sign because coach doesn't go against the money you can pay, players. So to an extent, I really could not care less about how much money they're paying him. The one thing, kind of like maybe what Jared was talking about, the new voice. But I think he might be better with the younger players, maybe like Durant, CP3 now at this point in his career, Booker being a little more of a veteran now. Maybe he wasn't really connecting with those guys. And we know the Pistons roster is super young and they're about to add another rookie, with this upcoming draft. So maybe in that sense, he's going to be a coach that can connect with the younger players. I'm going to say the same thing I say every time we talk about the Pistons. They need one of these guys, Ivy, Cade, Duren, someone to turn into a star. And if none of them do, then none of this matters. Monty will be fired in 3 years. So, they need someone to take that next step and turn into a superstar.
Yeah, he's and he seems like Jared said, the home run hire. The resume's there. He does work well with young players. I'm just hoping, because we thought the same thing with Casey, right? He came in with good credentials. Had a great run, coach of the year up in Toronto, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. So let's hope the Pistons turn it around with their young blood, and Williams is the guy there at least for 3 years, probably at least. And I expect we'll see some improvement if they stay healthy. Just a couple other things here, guys, that I had. We talked briefly about it. College football now is going more and more to the streaming. And, you would think I'd be upset about the money you have to shell out or whatever. I agree with the point you made, Jared, a while back, that college football, and now that we got to watch it on Peacock or whatever, it's not going to be as easy. We got to figure out how can we click it to go from game to game, right? I mean, that's the biggest drawback I see.
Yeah. It's really not that. I mean, and here's what was funny to me was all the people complaining about the Peacock games being on Peacock. If Peacock was charging you $50 a month, I'd be right up there with you. What the hell is this about? I mean, it's $5 a month.
Yeah.
Which to me, you get these college football games now, and you're also going to get whatever else Peacock has. I don't think it's a bad deal. Like we talked about, it's the thing that sucks is, let's say Michigan's playing at 3:30. and you have the SEC game going on at the same time. I mean, that's what makes those college football Saturdays awesome.
Yep.
Is you're always watching football. During the commercial, you flip to during halftime, you're flipping to a different game. So that is a bummer. But the big hubbub that people are making about it just kind of cracks me up, man. It's really not that big of a deal, and it's not like they put Michigan, Ohio State on Peacock. It's it's these lower level run games. I have no problem with it. It's the world we're going to. Yeah. We all kind of need to buckle up. I think we all love our cable. We all do. We all wish it was what it was in 2010 when everything was right on your TV guide. But it's just not that way anymore. Sucks, but it's just got to adapt.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, we're coming from the side of we're three guys who shell out the money for the streaming services. So for us, no big deal. I do wonder about, a lot of people go to bars and restaurants to watch games. And now a lot of these bars and restaurants are going to have to pay for, they used to maybe just get DirecTV to have everything. Now, if they want to show Michigan, East Carolina, they're going to have to pay for Peacock, maybe if they don't already have it. So maybe there's some, maybe few hiccups like that. Say you show up at a bar and you're wanting to watch the game and you tell the waitress or waiter, hey, can you turn on Peacock? And they're like, what are you talking about? We don't have the Peacock app here. Then like a server has to get their login and do all that. So those kind of things, that's something to maybe, that might happen. Right. It's just the inconvenience part, I think, is all it really comes down to.
Yeah.
Like you said, you used to be able to just turn on your TV, go to ABC 12, go to NBC 25, whatever, all the channels. There's all your games. Or, if you're on cable, you'd go to whatever ESPN2, and there's all your games. So, it's just the inconvenience thing. Like you said, Jared, it's just the way it is now. And I think it's a budget thing, Ted, you say it all the time. It's all about money. Same with Michigan State, Penn State going to Black Friday at Ford Field. It's all about money. And these programs, conferences, all they're trying to do is make as much money as they can. Yep. So if they can go to, and the networks and, NBC, if they can get 25,000 more people to sign up for Peacock just to watch that Michigan game, that's a win for them. So
do you guys have any comments at all? You're in the industry, you're in the television industry. You see that affecting you anywhere down the road? I know ESPN, I think they're making a big push for the ESPN Plus,
it's where everybody's going, man.
Yeah.
It's streaming is the future. It's smart TVs. It's everything.
But does it have any drawbacks? I mean, does it cut personnel? I mean, as far as you guys are concerned, does things stay the same? Is that what you think?
I mean, I think at first when people, I know for sure, because I was when people were first cutting the cord, you always heard that, cut the cord.
Right.
Yeah. There were a lot of layoffs because, there was a lot of money lost. So I think now they're trying to start to catch back up with the streaming. Part of the problem is a lot of people illegally stream, and, there's all these websites that'll put up the streams, and I can't, maybe it's because of who my employer is. I don't know if maybe I have morals. I'm not trying to say, I don't know, whatever. Not that I'm some like high standing person or something like that. I can't bring myself to watch a Michigan game on an illegal stream. If they're on Peacock, I'm going to pay for Peacock, even though I don't work for NBC. I just can't bring myself to watching a game on an illegal stream. And so that's part of it. Well, a big thing, not to cut you off, Jared, that they're adjusting to, ratings is such a big part of getting advertisers, and they're having to figure out, a game on a linear network, ESPN, ESPN2, maybe their ratings are dipping, but they're having to figure out how can we, count in all these streams, people watching on ESPN Plus or, whatever, so we can keep those advertisers coming in, so we can keep that money coming in.
Oh yeah. So
that's a big part of it too. As far as like literally the work I'm doing, no, it doesn't affect. I mean, it's still the same football game. Half of the games that I did over this weekend, the College World Series were on ESPN Plus. So it doesn't affect that.
All right.
Just need people to pay. Stop using those illegal streaming sites. Come on, people.
Don't share passwords either, right?
Yeah, man. Come on.
That was when I finally buckled down and bought YouTube TV. Last fall. It was because of Michigan football. So I do understand why places like Peacock, it makes sense to put these games behind a paywall, man. We need the football.
Yes.
And when I was sitting there realizing I have no way to watch this Michigan versus Hawaii football game, I had to do it. I had to buckle down and I had to buy it. So It is where it is, man. Ted, I'm sure you're upset about it. I mean, we all are, but
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of like, it's like your whole world has been rocked upside down by
Well,
this.
for an old fart, I mean, I can adjust to it. I'll be able to handle it. But and again, like I said, it's not the money because it's really not that expensive, at least at the moment. Once they get their hands into you, though, it can change in a hurry. So we'll see monetarily how it affects us. But the biggest problem is just not flipping between channels, and maybe they'll figure out a way to do that, but they don't want you to. They want you to stay right there and watch those commercials, right?
Yep, they
That's
want
where
you
they
to
make
stay
their money.
right there. Right?
Hell yes. All right. I don't know if you guys got anything else sports related. We do have a short Tedertainment Tonight coming up, and we'll get to it right after this.
Rivals Taphouse and Grille is the area's go-to spot for the best in food and drink. Meet up with your friends and catch your favorite sporting events on over 20 high-def flat-screen TVs.
And our 120-inch projection screen.
Rivals can handle your large or small parties and is an awesome spot to put on your fundraising events. Weekly food and drink specials including gourmet burgers, wings, pizza, homemade soup, and salads. Rivals also stocks a large selection of craft and domestic brews. Rivals Taphouse and Grille, the official gathering spot of 3 Point Podcast, located on the corner of Shiawassee and M21 in Corunna.
All right, guys, I'll start Tedertainment Tonight off tonight. So last week was the two-part American Gladiators 30 for 30. So we've mentioned 30 for 30s a number of times. Jared's term, season tickets. If it's a 30 for 30, it's going to be good. So American Gladiators, I know, Ted, you definitely remember the hysteria with American Gladiators. Jared, it was before your time. I know it's kind of been around still, and the documentary touches on all that. But for me, I was a child. I loved American Gladiators. I set the events up in our living room. I played the video games. I still have the toys. I went and dug out the toys, and my daughter's been playing with them. I mean, I wanted to be an American Gladiator. Like it was, when you're watching that, I don't know if you guys watch the 30 for 30s, but I was that generation who wanted to be an American Gladiator. It was just so cool.
What is it?
Unique. Go ahead, Jared.
What did they do? What is it? They are just bodybuilders essentially, and they wore leotards, or what
kind of obstacle course challenges, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Against civilians.
Yeah, so I guess the Cliff Notes version is there were a lot of either bodybuilders or former athletes turned into American Gladiators. And then, like Ted said, they had all these events, obstacle courses and a one-on-one football thing. And then just a ton of different obstacle course type things, like events, gladiator type of events, but they would go up against civilians and you could see if you could beat the American Gladiators. And so it was like the ultimate, and it was men and women. So, no one was cut out of it. You would be like, can I get on there and beat an American Gladiator? It was just it was almost like a dream maybe type of thing. You wanted to play in the NBA. You wanted to also be on American Gladiators. So that was cool. Reliving all that was super cool. Like the nostalgia. Like with any of these things, I was talking to a couple of coworkers who were also, my age and loved American Gladiators. We're seeing all these documentaries coming out, whether it's about stores or other, business people or athletes or whatever, and you get the backstories and you get all that. Everything has dirt. There's nothing, whether it's a person, whether it's a company, whether it's a movie, whether it's, all this stuff that's come out about actors who were terrible people or former athletes or whatever. It's just there's nothing that was just good. Everything has some sort of dirt. And I don't know if you get that vibe, Ted, when you watch some of these documentaries, but again, I was a kid, so I was glossed over all the stuff that was probably maybe obvious, but all the shady business stuff that was going on behind the scenes with American Gladiators, the athletes not getting paid anything, putting their bodies through just a ridiculous amount of pain and torture basically to stay a gladiator. It's just one of those things. It almost not that I wish I didn't watch it because it was very good, but it was it almost ruins American Gladiators for me. There's always something with all this stuff. It's not all as cracked up.
That's a new genre, like the dark history of I feel everything. Like a new one. It's Blackberry is a new. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard that's kind of the twisted history of how that went down.
Blackberry, the cell phones?
Yeah.
Really?
So I haven't, Ted, maybe this is a review for you next week. I have literally saw one review, and that's what it said. So maybe I'm talking out of my butt, but
it might be a couple weeks. I'm going to be busy this next week. I'm not going to have a lot of TV time. But now, Matt, did they get into? Was it, I haven't seen it yet. Was it well done? Like you said, 30 for 30, even though it gives you some of the background on the bad stuff. Was steroids involved as well with Gladiators?
Yeah. I mean, it was that era.
That's what I thought.
90s. So steroids. So that's a shame of it. So these athletes were trying to stay up on being an American Gladiator, but then also with the shady part of it with the steroids, they were taking the steroids so they could recover quicker and be stronger, because they were basically told, if you can't make a show, you're out. We've got other gladiators ready to step in. So now they're putting there's a couple ones, they all had these cool names: Blade, Saber, Laser. The dude that was Thunder is basically crippled over, hunched over, can't walk. He's still addicted to opioids. It's because of American Gladiators, because that was his only income. And if he didn't take the steroids and all the painkillers, he would have been off the show. So, it's then you see all this stuff. And so to answer your question, yes, very well done. They had one of the creators, and that's a whole side story to it. There were actual multiple creators, but the one guy that basically took all the credit, took all the money and everything, screwed his friends over. So there's that whole side to it. He was in the documentary. Some of the athletes were. So just, one of those things, it's cool to relive all that again, since I loved it so much. But then you get the dark side of it, and it's just greed. It's greed. Everything is ruined by greed.
So it kind of ruined your childhood memories a little bit.
Even a little bit.
Well done. Yeah.
A little bit.
I could understand that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a 1991 Topps American Gladiators trading card. Rolling Thunder. He's riding a chopper, and he's pointing he's pointing out into the air. I don't know what this is. This is so 90s that I kind of can't keep my eyes off of some of these posters and stuff. I might have to check this out. I've never heard of this show until 2 minutes ago, but seems like worth a watch, man.
The 30 for 30, I mean, you'd get the backstory, but you'd get a brief, quick what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they went worldwide. They toured. Like I said, video games, toys. It was huge.
It was huge. It was definitely. It wasn't my thing at the time because I was already getting a little older, but it was out there, and it was big time for sure.
Yeah.
I
would give not anything less than a 2.9 out of 3. I'd almost go 3 out of 3 on the scale.
Nice.
But
I'll definitely be checking it out.
American Gladiator fan. So
yeah, that's all right. Well, you guys know I'm a big fan of HBO, right? We've talked about that many times.
You're a shell for HBO, man.
Yeah.
I loved HBO from way back when, and we talked a little bit about it last week. The new show, or not new, it's just finished, Succession, that somehow I didn't start watching until recently, and now I can't stop watching it. It's just a tremendous show. It's kind of a takeoff on Rupert Murdoch and his family, and how they are fighting to get a piece of the pie. But I've got to thinking, guys, you know how I like my Mount Rushmore list of top 4 things. Looking back at HBO, and just for maybe some of the old timers out there, maybe youngsters might want to look at it, your all-time top 4 Mount Rushmore dramas. And it's pretty easy for me right now. There's a lot of great drama.
Wow, easy.
Well, there's a lot. I got some honorable mentions, but my top 4 right now, I'm pretty happy with. It's got to be The Sopranos, The Wire, and you'll laugh at this, Matt, but I'm putting it right there. Game of Thrones, and now Succession. Now, honorable mention, I had some. Deadwood is another good one. Didn't quite make the top 4, and Boardwalk Empire also really good. But I'm pretty solidly happy with my 4.
I mean, I love the Mount Rushmore. I would say if we polled America or even any HBO viewers, I think everybody would have the same Mount Rushmore. I think.
You think so? It's really just. I don't know.
Maybe. What do you? Is there? Where's the hot take in there? I was waiting for a hot take. It just never came on that.
Well, I didn't know I was supposed to bring a hot take, so maybe
I guess for me, maybe the hot take, maybe surprising. Again, I don't know all the HBO shows like you guys do. Is that Succession is in there?
Right.
Being one of the newer shows, you haven't even finished the whole series yet, and it's already in there.
Is the fact that you weren't on Succession from day one kind of a sign of how you've maybe like last year lost your TV watching fastball from back in the 90s and early 2000s? I mean, what do you think, Matt? I mean, that's kind of a telltale sign, right?
I'd be curious if you weren't doing this podcast, and active on social media, if you would have got into Succession or even Game of Thrones. It seems like Jared more got you into Game of Thrones.
No, those are fair points. They are, because let's look at it this way: there are only so many hours in the day. I mean, let's face it. This might be called Tedertainment, but my God, I miss a lot of stuff too.
So
now,
you can lie if you want.
Okay.
So you just started Succession.
Yeah.
In a week's time, how far have you gotten?
I'm on season 2. I've watched episode 1.
Okay, so you finished it. That's not too bad.
Okay. I try to bang 2 at a time. If we're watching it at night, we'll watch one and say, okay, you got time? Yeah, let's watch another one. So that's about what it comes out to be.
The way you said that, I feel like Shaq on the TNT show. I try to bang 2 at a time. I feel like you're Charles Barkley of Shaq right now.
I was gonna say, I don't know what you're watching on HBO, but this is a family friendly show.
Now my last one, guys. I don't know if there's a hot take in here either. Comedies. Okay, HBO comedies. Okay, you got to have Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? That have to be on everybody's list.
I agree.
Larry Sanders. Maybe not. That's an older one. That's Gary Shandling. He plays a late night talk show guy. Very brilliant show. So Larry Sanders, the Ali G show. Okay, you know that one?
Yeah.
Okay, and I like Veep.
What from what you just said seems like HBO's bread is buttered in the drama category, not as much in the comedy.
Why would you say? Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
I mean, to be honest, the Larry Sanders, I don't know what that is. I'll take your word for it that it's good.
That's a generational thing. You haven't checked it out.
No, I haven't watched VP. VP had a run where it's like they're winning every Emmy every single year. So I'm not going to be the guy that says that it's not good. I haven't seen it. It just hasn't come across my radar. But
it's good.
No, if you had to pit all your favorite HBO things, what's your number one show?
Oh, there's bar none, Sopranos.
Really?
Without a doubt. Yeah. I could say that every day, all day. So
do you feel like is this like the Michael Jordan, LeBron James thing? Is there any chance that Succession could dethrone Sopranos?
Perhaps, maybe. I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it would even pass The Wire, because it's a solid 1-2, The Wire and Sopranos, but I love The Sopranos. But Succession, I will say this, Matt, and Jared, you're watching it now. I give it right now 3 out of 3 so far.
I would say the big omission. I mean, White Lotus didn't make it for either category, in your opinion.
I forgot about that. I don't know. I don't know where I would categorize that. It's kind of like a dramedy, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
It's just, it is. That's why I was shocked that it didn't make either list. I think you could have put it on either one, and I would have been fine with it.
Almost got to have a dramedy category,
right?
Because there's a few of those out there too. I don't know. That's what I got. That's it.
It's fair. That's a good list.
Next time I'll work on a hot take.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you needed to bring a hot take. I thought that was where it was. I thought that there was going to be a big payoff at the end. So it's a great list. I think it's the right list. I think you nailed it.
Yep.
I think the big payoff is that Succession has slipped in there, and that's like the new hot thing.
After one season and one episode.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
How about that? All right. I think we spent enough time on this podcast, boys, but it's been a lot of fun.
We're trickling up to 2 hours on this one.
Yeah. Wow.
Holy cow. Better do some editing. Well, let's wrap it up. This has been the 3 Point Podcast presented by Memorial Healthcare's Now Community Wellness Center. Skymint Cannabis, also one of our great sponsors, farm to stash, grown right here in the Great Lakes State, over 20 locations, the newest one up in Traverse City. Check out Michigan's best bundles for deals on flower, vapes, pre-rolls, edibles, and extracts, ounces as low as $49. If you're over 21, go online at skymint.com, sign up for the rewards program. Also, Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center, they got a big special going on. You can get a free membership all the way up to Father's Day if you want to sign up for a new one. That's the Father's Day special. Join the Wellness Center now. Pay nothing until Father's Day. More details, follow them on Facebook at Memorial Wellness Center or go online at memorialhealthcare.org. Also, thanks to our local partners, AZEE Printing Solutions, CR Auctions, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Refresh my memory. When did we have Jim on? What did we talk about?
Well, when the scholarship came around, that was honoring.
That's right. He came to the radio station at that time. We weren't doing video in those days.
Yeah.
All right. Well, don't forget to follow us on the socials at 3 Point Pod and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can rebut anything that we have to say. Also, again, I want to thank Randy Woodworth of Woodworth Commercial and First Gen Wealth Podcast. He's got one in the can, as we say, and check that out. I'm sure there's going to be some great episodes coming down the road. As we always say, peace and love. Be kind. Thanks for listening.